Hello and welcome back to Adulting Anonymous. My name is Kudzai, your host, and I am so glad you could tune in. Today on our podcast, we have someone coming for us to drag us. He's literally coming into our houses and helping us with our finances. We are joined by Miss Samantha Aaminah Masauso, and she is a personal finance coach and a blogger, and I'll just hand over to her for her to introduce herself and tell us more about herself.
Hi, Kudzai. Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Joanna Aaminah Masauso, as Kudzai has indicated. By day, I'm a software developer, and by night, I'm a master's student, a personal finance blogger, and a personal finance coach.
Hectic. Wow, so great to have you here. You mentioned that you're a software developer. How does a software developer become a personal finance coach? Do you want to walk us through how that came about?
Yeah, sure. You know, the one good thing about IT, despite the long hours and, all of those misconceptions that people tell you that IT pays a lot, it doesn't, um, is when you work in tech, you have the ability to work in various fields and you're still doing the same thing. For example, you can work in medical care, or you can work in engineering, you can work in consultancy, you can work in banking, but you're still doing software development. So that's one of the great things about working or about being a person in the tech industry. So this is what happened to me. I Straight out of university, I got a job in a bank. I was moving forward. uh, if you
Yep, we know
can
that. We now got it.
imagine. Yeah, I was moving forward and I started working. I worked there for 6.5 years up until last year, January. And in that time, I was very fortunate enough that my work experience opened my eyes to the greater banking industry. And I got an opportunity to study banking itself. I have a certificate in banking. Over and above that,
Hectic.
I also got trained in various banking products, like the sections of banking. You've got personal and business banking. You've got home loans. You've got transactional,
Mm-hmm.
which is your day-to-day transactions. You've got savings and investments. You've got asset vehicle and asset finance. You've got secured and unsecured lending. Well, so you've got all those various elements that make up this component of banking that has something to do with you as an individual and not as a business. And that was what I got extensively trained on, because my then boss believed, if you were going to be an effective software engineer in his department, he wanted you to have the knowledge of what the products that you were building um, did and the impact. He was very concerned about the downstream impact and the multiplier effect. And luckily, that was my boss's boss. My boss, she was game, and she sent us for training for all of these things. And it really was a great experience for me, because I learned about money and I learned about people, and
Mm-hmm.
how the mindset of how we as people start making financial decisions, and
Yeah.
the need for the banking industry and things like that. It took a while for me to then get into the personal finance, the really, really get into the personal finance space. Because remember, when you're looking at the banking system, you're looking at a business. A bank is a business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it took a while. It's only when I think it was about 2 years later, and I decided to put my big girl panties on and make big girl decisions, that I actually started applying everything that I learned in banking and in the training that I got to myself.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
can't take all the credit. My lawyer is also primarily responsible for all the knowledge that I have because she put me on the path. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. How would you describe your relationship with money before you took the training that your employer obviously signed you up for, and the whole big girl panty purchase, which I'm pretty sure we can all guess? But how would you describe your relationship with your finances before that and after?
So before, let me actually say before 24, because the bigger purchase happened when I was 24, 25, and
Okay.
after 24. So
Okay.
before 24, I was a very, I can't say I was a person who believed in the you only live once philosophy, because I did save, right? But
Yeah.
I was a person who thought that, nothing could change. I'm on this wave. And I do admit that I was a bit of a shopaholic. I loved to shop, and I did so primarily because I was also going through a lot of personal issues. And instead of dealing with my personal issues, I was
Mm-hmm.
actually taking all my issues out in the shopping mall, you know. And
Hectic.
when I look back, I actually cry because I was like, okay, if I did save, because had I not been saving in all those years, I wouldn't have achieved any of the things that I then went on to do in life. But I could
Mm.
have saved a whole lot more. I could have done a whole lot more. Like the biggest lesson my before 24 period taught me is money looks great on your feet, but it is
Yep.
very useless on your feet. So, like, everyone knows, I have a very, very deep passion for shoes. I love shoes. And I bought shoes. I did. I bought a whole lot of shoes. But when you come
Mm-hmm.
to think of it, shoes, unless they're collector's items, they're not a very good investment, And
Yeah.
about 3.5 years later, all my shoes were stolen. So, um, had I actually saved,
Ouch.
had I actually saved most of that money, I would have done something more. I'm not saying people shouldn't shop or any of those things. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just saying, we need to be wiser about the way we make decisions. If I look at my post 24 period, I actually have a very decent relationship with money. Um, if I was to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say 9. The reason I'm saying 9 is because there's a 10% factor with money when it comes to all of us that is with that is not within our control. So these are things that can
Yeah.
happen that will affect your finances, but you don't have any control over how they happen. So yeah, that's me.
Hectic. Okay, a lot of insights there. So you mentioned how you, before your big purchase, you were saving, so your relationship with money wasn't so bad. I want to dive into saving, but before we do that, I want to ask, we have obviously been hit with an uncertain rude awakening called COVID-19. And a lot of people are struggling with finances. These people that are losing jobs, these people that didn't have any savings, like you were speaking about your savings. And I just wanted you to let us in on what we should have been doing before COVID-19, like before, let's say around, well, in South Africa, around February, when this whole thing started creeping up and then the lockdowns all happened. What should we have been doing with our finances to ensure that we were okay?
Okay, so as we're getting into this discussion, I think it's very important for us. something we should have done at the very beginning is put out
Oh
a disclaimer
yes.
that anything that we're discussing here is meant for education and entertainment purposes. And if you do want to get financial advice, because I'm not a financial advisor, so this is not legal or financial advice. If you do want financial or legal advice, please go and consult with a registered financial professional, uh, and make sure their certification is valid, and also
Mm,
consult
major
with a
key.
registered, yeah, a registered legal professional. So what should we have been doing, right? So COVID-19 came, um, we started hearing rumors about COVID around January, right? Despite the fact
Mm-hmm.
that there's been reports that it was around for probably 3 months prior. Now, that January, February period, right, for a lot of countries and not just South Africa, is the end of the tax year. And it's also the beginning of the financial year. March is the beginning of the financial year for a lot of people,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Um, when you look at what we should have been doing as people, as individuals, we should have been sitting down. First and foremost, everything, something that we should do at the beginning of every year is sitting down and revising our financial statuses. This means looking at our contracts. This means doing a very thorough impact assessment on of our finances, looking at our finances from a perspective of where, if someone was to draw a picture of my financial life right now and put in everything that has something to do with me financially, this is what it would look like. Or think of it as writing a book. You were also meant to be in a season of renegotiating contracts, right? So this is a time
Yep.
where you're talking to your insurance or your medical aid, and you're trying to already, some of it happens around October, November, December, but this is also a time where you can do it, right? You are negotiating for things like medical aid, your insurance, you are reassessing your insurance premiums, you are
Mm-hmm.
looking at how my next 12 months is going to be like, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're
And
now,
it's major. It's really important that people know they can actually negotiate these things. Some people stay with the same premium and they just
yeah.
accept those raises forever.
And you know what's even funny is, even with your rent, you can negotiate for for a rent freeze or a rent decrease. People don't know they can do
It's
that. You can, yeah, you can.
what
You can ask your landlord, to freeze your rent
your
for the
rent.
year.
Mm,
So, over and above that, you're also in a space where you are now defining your financial goals for the year, right? So
yep.
this now comes into play, the question of how much should I save, or how much should I have saved to cushion
Mm,
myself against the COVID-19. Now, first of
yep.
all, I think it's very important for people to understand that there is there is something that you could have done, but to a greater extent, COVID was so unexpected, to a point where people have to accept the fact that no matter how much planning they did, some things are out of their control, right?
Nothing could have prepared you. Yeah, that's true.
Nothing could have prepared anyone. And when I look at it, I also look at people who are in the freelance space, or who are in the arts industry, who are in the gig economy, so they come in for a gig, they get paid, and they go. COVID hit at a point where they had budgeted for the next 3 months, the first 3 months of the year, because it's downtime, and January and February, there's not much work. Work starts
Mm,
picking up around March, but it's not even a lot. Towards the end of March, then work starts picking up. So, um, they had saved and had made this beautiful plan to say, I have income to sustain me for the next 3 months, right?
yep.
From January. Then COVID hits, and you don't have income for the 3 months after the 3 months that you saved for, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we were also in that space where School fees needed to be paid. We're coming out
Mm-hmm.
of the December phase, because December,
Mm-hmm.
especially in Africa, December is probably the most lucrative time of the year for any financial institution, for any retail institution. So we were getting out of that phase. So I think the biggest lesson, to be honest, that we can take from this is that we now need to save over and above for December and for the months that are coming, because a lot of people were caught unawares. This was a time where the savings they had put aside, it wasn't enough to sustain them post
Mm.
post the 1st of March, or post the end of March for some people. What could you have done? It was important for you to have a debt repayment strategy, to know where you stand financially. Because I say debt repayment because the best thing that can sustain a lot of people right now is to have as little debt as possible. Because when you have
Mm-hmm.
little debt, you have more capital, or you have more income or money or cash flow,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you choose to call it, to divert to other things. Debt is an
Yeah.
obligation you all need to pay if you do have debt, and you can't run away from it. So that was that's one. No, that's two actually. Know where you stand financially. Secondly, have as little debt as possible, or have a very robust debt repayment plan. And thirdly, save. It's very important
Yeah.
to save. The issue of
Yeah.
emergency things comes into discussion here.
Yeah, that is very important. So the reason why I asked for what we could have done before COVID-19 is that we do have individuals that well, their income streams have not been changed. So if you have a stable salary, you're still earning a salary. And if anything, you're actually saving more because you're on lockdown and you're not doing much. So hopefully people can still operate in a pre-COVID mindset and still save and still take out as little debt as possible, despite the fact that debt seems cheaper now, and obviously saving as well. So that's great. So now that we are in COVID-19, which is the important part, I guess, like now that we find ourselves here, what do you think we should be doing? I mean, there's so many words and jargon that's being thrown around. We've got payment holidays that are being discussed. We've got people who've had their salaries slashed into half or by a third. We've had people that have lost jobs. They've people that had side hustles that aren't obviously bringing in any money right now. So just to obviously not see flames, what should we be doing now and in the next, I don't know, in the foreseeable future, to ensure that we manage our finances properly and that they can sustain us. And besides just being in survival mode, we can also flourish in this season. So, what can we do to be in that position?
Oh, that's actually a very good question. How do you stop your finances from working against you, basically? So,
Mm,
first of all, we go back to basics. Do a financial analysis. Know everything that has anything to do with you that has a dollar value attached to it, right? So you've
mhm,
got a very clear picture of everything, and not just what you owe, because people automatically fall into, I've got debt and I need to pay debt, and that's my only financial responsibility. That's actually not true. There are other financial aspects of your life, like investments, like policies, and like what you're saying, your salary is slashed. What do you do in
mm,
that case? What does the labor law say in that case? What does
mm,
your employer's compensation plan say in situations like this? So it's a lot of work in terms of going out and seeking knowledge and putting your finances together in such a way that you have one view of them. Now that is done, you now know everything that you can possibly know about your money. The second thing that you do is you categorize what's important, what can I completely get rid of, what can I cut down on? And then when you do that, you place terms on it. You say, if I need to cut down on this, for how long am I cutting down on it? If I need to negotiate a better deal for myself, for how long can I negotiate the deal for?
Negotiate.
No.
Mm.
Yes. So you've got periods of 3 to 6 months, which is the ideal situation, right? That
Mm-hmm.
after 6 months things will go back to normal, or we'll have a new normal that isn't too bad to get adjusted to, you know. 6 to 12 months, or 6 to 9 months, and then 12 months and beyond, you know. So this is a type of plan that you now need to come to, you now need to bring to life. Do you need to speak to your bank and ask for a payment holiday? Do you need to speak to your bank and extend your repayment term? You know, if you have a mortgage, maybe you have a mortgage for 15 years, do you need to make it 20 years in the meantime, so that you pay less? Of course, in the long term, it means you pay more interest. But if it's something that you need to do right now, you know, so that you have a little bit more cash flow to put food on the table, then do that. So these are the things that we now need to plan for. What are you getting rid of? Do you need to downsize your car? Do you need to
Mm.
cut down on, you know, nice times? Do you need to now stop shopping at Woolies and, you know, shop at Pick and Pay or Checkers? So
Mm.
these are the
Mm.
do you need to put your black tax recipients on a budget and tell them, guys, you know what, it's austerity, so we are cutting down on what we have? Do you need to call your insurance people, or your life insurance provider, and say, you know, there's a clause in my contract that said that in terms of retrenchment I can get a payout, right? I'm cashing
Yep.
in on that. Yes. Do you need to now go to your financial services provider and say, I am unable to earn an income for the next 3 to 6 months or whatever? Can I get a payment holiday? Over and above that, can the credit insurance that was attached to the financial agreement that you and I
Mm.
had kick in and take over my payments? So these are things. Do you need to call your landlord and say, landlord, can we negotiate a way? Can I pay half the rent, or can I pay a third of the rent periodically, because, you know, things are tough? Those are the type
Yeah.
of conversations that we now need to be having. And you know, when you go to people and you're asking for these extensions, or you're asking for, you know, for a renegotiation, have your facts straight. Tell them, I anticipate that in 6 months my life will be back to normal, or I anticipate that in 9 months my life will be somewhat back to normal, and I can pick up my
My
responsibilities again.
best. That is so, 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 so insightful. I think what's very important is people, like you mentioned, people going back to their contracts that they signed and actually reading them. Because some people, I stress again, people don't know that they have credit insurance. People don't know that they can actually negotiate these things. But anyway, thank you for that. So now I want to dive into something you mentioned, which is a payment holiday, right? What is a payment holiday, and in what situations should we be taking payment holidays up?
So, first of all, let me say that payment holidays existed before COVID-19, because people are now thinking, oh, it's COVID-19 and it's a feature that is offered by the banks as a
Mm-mm.
way of no, payment holidays have always existed. But then, thanks to COVID-19, some of the terms and conditions have been relaxed a little bit to give people a little bit more relief. So, a payment holiday essentially is temporary relief measure whereby you are given a holiday essentially from
I'm
paying
paying your debt.
from repaying your financial obligations to your financial services provider, provided that you can prove that the reason why you are unable to meet your financial obligations is beyond your control, or is an act of
Mm-hmm.
God, or is something that has been sudden and there's nothing you can do about it. For example, a couple of years ago, I unfortunately lost my house in tornado, right?
Mm.
And luckily for me, I had very good insurance at that point in time. And well, thanks to, good financial planning, I wasn't too badly affected. Well, I resorted to my savings and things like that, but I wasn't too badly affected to the point where I had to ask the bank that I had to stop paying for the duration of the time that I wasn't living in the house, you know. But some people,
Yeah.
yeah, some people in my complex went and they got it approved. So, should you be taking a payment holiday? Question is, do you need a payment holiday? Because the thing
True.
is, the bank is going to say no if they feel that you do not need a payment holiday. So that's what I said, when you go in and you negotiate for things like this, you need to have your facts straight and you need to have a very clear picture of what is happening. The other thing that people need to note is it's a temporary relief measure. If you take a
Mm-hmm.
payment holiday, right, it doesn't mean that the repayment amount that you're supposed to pay within that payment holiday period goes away. No, it's
Nope.
just tagged on to the end of your payment.
It basically gets postponed, and it also incurs interest, right? It attracts interest, if not at a higher rate.
So what happens now is it depends on how you negotiate it, because some people are able to negotiate for an interest-free payment holiday. So essentially, they've moved the 6 months to the end of their payment term, right? And it's not curing interest. In some cases, it is unavoidable. You will incur interest over the outstanding balance. They will calculate based on the outstanding balance. So you don't pay for 6 months, your capital repayment has no contribution to it over the next 6 months that you're not paying. On the seventh month, you're going to calculate how much you owe, and then they're going to calculate the interest from there. So you'll find out that you might end up owing a little bit more thanks to taking a payment holiday. So it's very important to exhaust all other avenues that you can, except getting into more debt. That's very important
Mm-hmm.
before you take a payment holiday.
The payment holiday. That's deep. Okay, just I actually forgot to mention these questions are questions we got on Instagram when we ask people what questions they have relating to their finances. So I'm just gonna go ahead and ask the next one. We also had a repo rate reduction during COVID-19. Well, we had one before and after. I think we've now had two repo rate reductions. And someone asked, what is the effect of the repo rate reduction? I guess we can talk about that we can link that to from a consumer perspective, like a normal individual.
So the reason why, especially with COVID-19, right, the repo rate is very good on us is it makes our debt obligations a little bit cheaper. Well, and I'm stretching the word a little because I think if there's a scale, we can put it on medium, right? So because the repo
Mm-hmm.
rate was reduced by 2.5, overall 2.5 to 2%. So essentially,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you had a revolving credit agreement and you were paying 17% interest on this credit agreement. Now your interest rate has been reduced and now you're paying 15, right? Why was this done? So that people can have a little bit more cash flow in times like this. And this cash injection can go directly into the economy. The government is losing money in terms of all of the structures that they have to put in to provide relief for everyone, in one way or the other. So the best
And
way they
just
can,
also the absence of economic activity, I guess.
yeah. So they are
Mm.
not collecting a lot of taxes from the way that they normally collect tax, but then they can collect tax in terms of VAT, in terms of, import export taxes, the stuff that we're still allowed to buy or import or export, you know. So these are the that's why the repo rate is very good for consumers, because right now the it's making life a little bit cheaper for you as a consumer, and that's the biggest
Mm.
advantage of the of this reduction. If you're in a position where you're not too badly affected by, the pandemic, this would be an incredible time to pay off your debt if you have any. Like, cash in and go in hard. And because I don't think we're ever going to see the interest rates anywhere in the world as low as they are right now, ever again.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to happen.
That is so deep. But then isn't this just for the debt that's variable? Because some
So
people have fixed rates, so that doesn't change anything, right?
So for for your variable lending and for your asset backed lending, you can still go and negotiate for a reduction in the interest rate, even if you had tried to peg or fix your interest rate. People, especially with home loans, you find that there are people who then go and say, okay, the interest rate is 8%, right? Can I peg it at
Mm-hmm.
8.5 for the next 5 years, so that if the interest rates rise, I am not too badly affected. But that pegging means that you pay a little bit more in terms of interest. It works well if the interest rate rises. It doesn't work so well if the interest rate, decreases, but you can still go and negotiate. The one thing that a lot of the financial services providers have done is they've kind of relaxed the laws a little bit, because it's not making them a lot of money for people to default right now. No one has the money to pick up the slack of what we defaulted on. So it's better for them to reach a decent point for you, right? And at least keep you in the system and have you managing your finances in a proper way, than to have you blacklisted or to have you in a position where you can't pay. Now, for things like the worst hit situations will be things like personal term loans. You borrow money for 2 years and that's it. There is no
Mm.
revolving plan on that. You can't negotiate on that. And that is the biggest drawback to that. But for everything else that has a variable interest rate linked to it or is asset backed, you're good to go. I do need to say though, there is a downside. The downside of the repo rate reduction is that your savings deposits, the interest payout on your savings deposit also
Also
goes down.
decreases. Oh
It
my gosh, I hadn't thought of it from that perspective. Yikes, I hate it. Okay, anyway, whilst we are on savings, can you please just explain the difference between savings, an emergency fund, and investing? That's
so
the other question. Mm-hmm.
I like that question because I will explain why as I answer it. Saving technically is just putting money away to be used at another time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Investing is putting money to work so that the money grows. The intention of investing is growth of money. An emergency fund is a saving that you put aside so that you, in case of an emergency, you have immediate cash flow to cushion you for the duration of the emergency or for a period of time. You know, People say that
Yep.
you should have between 3 to 6 months worth of income as an emergency fund. It depends. Some people can have up to 12, some people can have six, some
Yeah.
3. Yeah, it depends. And it also depends on you as a person. Are you saving on gross or are you saving on net? But an emergency fund, the purpose of an emergency fund and of saving in general is not to grow or to have exponential growth in the money that you put aside. It's literally to have funds that you put away. And one of the biggest differences between savings and investments is the vehicles you use, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't say I'm investing when you're putting money into a 32-day notice deposit account. You're saving because the return on those accounts is very low, right? And
Yep.
you can't say, I'm saving for an emergency, I have an emergency fund, and then we say, okay, where's your emergency fund? And then you'll be like, no, I have an apartment that I'm renting out, that my tenant pays rent, but then the rent goes into paying for the mortgage for the apartment. So it the savings vehicle becomes very important in this. An emergency fund is meant to be readily available. You know, it's meant to be,
Mm.
if you need it today, you need to be able to access it today. You don't need to sell shares to access the cash. You don't need to sell the property or sell the investment to have it readily available. Savings, over and above the emergency fund savings, you will get some growth in your savings depending on the vehicle that you're using. But the purpose is not, you can't get wealthy from saving. You really can't.
That's true. That's the sad truth. Myself included. I think people have this thing where they think when you save and you're looking at the money and it's chilling in the bank, then you are good to go. And honestly, it doesn't do any, yeah, it's
It doesn't
pointless.
do anything.
It's
If you're
pointless because now look at the rent declining and now you're looking at your money losing value and it's just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
And if you are investing, you now need to think about the risk that you're taking, because the more
Mm,
you take, the more return you get. But there's the one golden rule of investing: do not invest money you can't afford to lose, right? I think COVID has taught a lot of people that cashing in on trends doesn't pay. You need to have a very level head when you decide to invest in anything, be it property, be it livestock, be it buying shares. You
mm,
need to have a very level head, because what people had anticipated didn't work out well. The purpose of investing is to grow wealth, to grow your money, to grow
mm.
wealth. And
Understand.
yeah, and it's long term. So you don't
Mm,
you don't put 15,000 rand in an investment scheme today and expect 30,000 rand tomorrow. It takes time.
ah,
Yeah. So
okay. That's major key. Whilst we're still on investments, someone asked, how does one invest slash ensure that their investments aren't affected by COVID-19? Side note, I don't think you can make sure anything is not affected by COVID-19, but I'll hand it over to you. So the question is, how does one invest slash ensure their investments aren't affected by COVID-19? So I think it's a two-part question.
yeah. So you can't like, you're very right, Kudzai. There is no 100% foolproof that your investments will not be affected by COVID-19. In fact, there is no 100% foolproof method of investing that ensures that your money will be safe either way, right?
Yep.
However, this is now about risk. Now you manage the risk
Yeah.
and minimize the risk. And the best way to minimize risk in terms of savings and investments is to actually diversify, right?
Specify.
Yeah.
Mm.
Do not put your eggs in one
In
basket.
one basket.
Yeah.
Preach.
That's the best
Okay.
thing that you can do. And we get excited and we get a little bit greedy, because when we talk about money, we also have to talk about the human emotion and the human thought process that goes into why we make the money decisions that we make. This is why people cash
Mm.
out trains, because the greed is there, that I want to make it now and I want to do it now, and I need to make the most money now.
Woman, yeah.
Here's the catch with
Yes.
that, though, Kudzai, is that when you cash in on trends and you cash in on things that you feel a very high reward, you go all in with your eggs in one basket, and you're putting something in a very high risk situation where you can potentially lose it all. The best thing to
Uh,
do with an investment portfolio is to have a very diversified investment portfolio. For example, Let me try and give this example in 2 minutes and under. You have
Mm.
200 Rand and you want to invest 200 Rand, right? How do you ensure that? What measures do you take to ensure or to try and ensure to the best of your ability that your 200 Rand is not completely lost? You take a small portion, you take 20 Rand and you put it in a tax free savings account, right? You
Mm-hmm.
then take another 20 Rand and you invest in livestock, you know. You then take 30 Rand and you invest it in a gold backed unit trust. A gold backed unit trust give a lot of precious metal backed unit trusts, best performing unit trusts as of last year, and they give a return of about 60% maximum, right? And it will depend on how
Mm-hmm.
much you invest. You then, so we had $70, right? You take $30 and you then decide, okay, let me invest in property, right? You either buy shares in a property company or you buy property itself. This is a hypothetical example. Now you're at
Yep.
$100. You then decide, okay, I'm going to take another $40 and I'm going to buy shares. But then my share portfolio will have 20, you will have $10 in a pharmaceutical company, $10 in an oil company, $10 in a finance company, and $10 in whatever other asset class or business class that you decide to invest on. So you've got $60 left. What are you going to do with that $60? You then go and put $30 in an ETF, and the rest of the $30 you can look at any other avenue of investment that you can think of, a money market account, or you can then decide to buy an asset. So if it so happens that COVID comes in, the oil company is hit, right? For example, your $10
Mm-hmm.
going to not give you a very good return, but the other $30 is going to give you a decent return still, because these are industries that are still working. Your property, your landlord cannot pay, but then you have $30 in that property, right? Your tenant cannot pay. You have $30 in that property, but the rest of your assets are still paying somewhere somehow. So this is what I mean by diversifying your portfolio. People think that diversification means if I have shares in one company, then I'm going to buy shares in another company of the same type. No, you actually need to look
No.
at various industries that are completely different from each other that you can buy shares in. People who bought shares in Netflix, for example, or Apple, are sitting pretty at this point in time. And people who
Yeah.
bought shares in Pick and Pay are cashing in because those companies
Mm.
are paying out. But people who bought shares in Sasa are crying because no one's going anywhere. So the petrol price is not very conducive for Sasa. Yeah.
But
So
yeah, no, that's a great lesson in diversifying portfolios. I should actually charge for this episode and cash in on that advice. Anyway, all right, we've got two questions left. The first one is, you know how in our salary slip we have like our gross income, and then we have all these deductions that are taken, basically leaving us with peanuts, but we're not there. The question is, are policies such as retirement annuity, life insurance, or an additional retirement annuity in that case, are these policies still necessary in this age? Because I mean, we don't have much money to be wasting. We don't have much money. So is it necessary for us to continue paying these out or allowing these deductions to go through?
yes, it's very necessary. And I'll say we need to have, like I've said before, we need to have a very level head when it comes to making financial decisions at this point in time. Why? It's very important for us not to be penny wise and pound foolish. COVID won't last
Mm.
forever. Junk status won't last forever. A retirement policy is not meant to give you relief right now. It's meant to give you relief in the future. I remember one person actually said on Twitter that COVID-19 is showing us what retirement is going to be like. You don't have an income,
Mm,
stuck at home every day. So if you're not planning accordingly for retirement, you're going to cry. And just because you stopped the
that's deep.
payments to your retirement annuity, knowing the government laws in South Africa in particular, doesn't mean that the money that you invested in it is coming back right now. It's not. What's going to happen is you're only going to get a payout when you're 55. That's when you can cash out on an additional retirement annuity. You still can't withdraw from your pension. If you do withdraw from your pension, the tax penalties are so high, it's not even worth it. So, your life insurance policy and your retirement annuity policy, they're very important. Don't cancel them out. In fact, I would say go and negotiate with your life insurance to add a retrenchment benefit to it. You might even have it at this point in time and you don't know. So if you end up retrenched, you can cash in on that retrenchment benefit that comes with your life insurance policy.
Yo, that is hectic. That is hectic. So basically, we should continue saving because that sounds scary to think that like right now where you actually have prospects and you have a hope that COVID-19 will end and you start earning money again. If you do this and you don't actually plan for retirement, there's nothing to look forward to because you're going to be stuck in there like that. Like you're broke, you are no income and you're at home. Guys, it's necessary. Anyway, we have another question. It says, what what should we expect financially as consumers?
Financially, as consumers, and I'll take this taking into consideration COVID, and in the South African situation, I'll take into consideration junk status, travel, all of these things that thanks to COVID and all other situations that we're falling into. In particular, in South Africa, people can expect the cost of living to go up. Why? We are a country that has a bad credit record in terms of
Mm-hmm.
our investment grade. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
expensive for us to borrow money, and it's very expensive for us to service any obligations that are foreign currency backed, because the rand is really not doing anyone a lot of favors at this moment. So we
Nope,
need,
it ain't.
yeah, our biggest import is fuel as a country, and the price of fuel is directly linked to the price of everything from healthcare to food, especially food. So we are going to find the cost of living, especially in those two avenues, are going to go up drastically. The price of basic commodities is going to grow up because you need transport to get food in stores and things like that. Because of this cost that's going to go up, the foreign currency cost that's going to go up, companies might find it very hard to get the stuff that they want overseas, or might find it hard to get investments to continue funding their businesses. So they would rather lose manpower and work with the reduced labor force, and stay afloat. So we're going to also experience job losses, and thanks to COVID-19, that's already happening. And the last part is something that we can look forward to. Now, again, I'm not an economist, I'm not a tech specialist, I'm not a financial advisor, but just looking at the markets, this is something that I'm expecting. Where I'm currently based, I'm based in Canada right now. We can
Mm.
all expect a tax hike.
Mm.
It's inevitable that all this money for the COVID,
On top of on top of the tax we're paying now, more
yeah,
tax.
I've come to accept it, that next year I'll be paying 41% of my salary to taxes. So
Hectic.
this is a situation that we find ourselves in, where the money that we've spent putting measures that people so that people can have food to eat in COVID-19 needs to be repaid somehow, and the person who pays that, unfortunately, is the taxpayer. So
Mm.
these are things that we can expect. We can there's there is no other tax revenue that's coming in for a lot of countries right now. Tourism is closed, industries closed. On the good side, we might actually find a lot of countries, well, I know a lot of countries are already doing this. They're bringing manufacturing back onshore. So we might have a lot more manufacturing jobs being available, but it still doesn't cushion the amount of money that people have spent on COVID alone, and that needs to be repaid.
Yeah,
So
some way and somehow, yeah.
our business taxes, our personal taxes, and our even our estate taxes are going to go up, and it might not be this year, but it might be a gradual increase over the next 3 or 4 years. The finance minister has said he's tabling a special budget. Is it on the 6th of June? So let's keep our ears open to hear what he's going to say about the taxes then.
Yo, that is so deep. I can't imagine paying more tax, but yo, I guess now that we know what to expect, I guess we'll also be more frugal with our finances. You mentioned living in Canada. Give us, because you live in Canada right now. How is it? I mean, obviously from a financial landscape as well, but how is, like, do you sometimes wish you could come back?
I
Like,
do.
and I guess I'm also speaking from a financial perspective because I know when I was overseas, there are times when I actually thought it financially it was easy. It would have been easier for me to be back home. So in COVID-19 and probably in like looking at the next 12 or so months, do you think how is it there? Like, are people seeing flames like we're seeing flames? Do you wish you could come back, or you're like, oh, I'm chilled? Is the effects of you probably paying so much tax, and is it less because I mean you are in a developed country and obviously it's definitely different because here you may pay a lot of taxes, but you don't get great services from the government in terms of transport, etc. So how is it?
So, this is a very difficult question. I won't lie. Well, I can only speak for my position because every person's story is different, right? Financially, I'm
Mm,
not badly affected by COVID. However, my investments did take a hit, right? So that's life, you know.
mm-hmm,
Um, but the unemployment rates in North America, to be particular, are really, really
mm,
bad. In the US, 30 million people have filed for unemployment benefits. Now, Canada has a population of 31 million. This literally means the whole of Canada, except for 1 million people, have applied. When we move it to the case of the United States, have applied for unemployment benefits. Secondly, when I look at Canada itself, there's 3 million people filing for unemployment. So 10% of the country has been affected badly. Do I wish I can come back home? Yes, especially when I walk into a grocery store and I have to pay
mm,
80 for one avocado. That's not even big. Like literally, people say Woolworths is expensive, but food in this part of the world is very,
mm,
very expensive. Um,
mm.
in terms of cost of living, it is very, very high. Rent is literally high. I really miss paying 2,500 rent or paying 4,500 rent or whatever I was paying then, because my rent is now in, well, it's actually now in the 20Ks rand terms for
Hectic.
for an apartment that's smaller than what I lived in Joburg. So
Mm,
that cost of living situation is, you know earning, like, people get blinded. They'll be told, no, you earn 80K a month when you work in Canada. 80K a month
it,
when I'm in South Africa means I'm a goddess. I am doing the most with that 80K. I am driving
mm,
CDs, I am doing all of this. 80K in Canada, especially in Ontario, means I am paying ridiculously very high taxes, which is offset by the fact that healthcare is free. Not all healthcare, I still have to pay for dental and I still have to pay for eye care. But the basic things like being admitted into hospital is free, right? Um,
yeah.
but I'm still paying a lot more in terms of food, in terms of transport. Well, the car, the gas, which is the petrol, is quite cheap, and there are other taxes that come in here. Uh, in South Africa, we buy food that has the VAT amount included. So if you're paying 99, if it's 99 rand, it's 99 rand inclusive of that. Here, if
Mm,
it's $99, it's $99 excluding GST, as we call it. And
mm.
they're still, so
Which
you
is
get,
general sales tax.
yeah, you get to the till, and then you'll be like, oh, here's your, and they'll be like, no, it's not 99 rand, it's 99 plus 13. Thank you very much. Plus 13%. That's the tax that you pay.
That is
So
hectic.
yeah, there's pros and cons to everything. The cost of living in South Africa is really low, and it's very favorable. Food is very cheap, despite the fact that
Mm.
we have socioeconomic issues that mean a lot of people do go hungry. Food is very cheap. Healthy food is actually very cheap because Whole Foods ain't cheap, people. Whole Foods ain't cheap.
Yeah.
The cheap food here is canned food, and it's not really healthy for anyone.
Yo, that's insightful. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Do you have any, before we let you go, please leave us with like parting words for our fellow adults. I mean, we're all adults, and this life thing is showing
It's
us flames,
all
some more than others, but we could use any words of wisdom, and also just to plug us as to where we can get hold of you on social media if people want like one-on-one coaching, if group coaching, or all that jazz.
Okay, so let me drop my social media handles first. You can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at Miss Amina's blog, MSAAMINAHSBOLG. That's one word. Uh, Let me repeat that, at MSAAMINAHSBOLG. Miss Amina's blog. That's the same handle on Twitter and Instagram. You can also go to my website, which is www.pursesandchecks.com. Checks with a QUE, not a CK, not the American spelling. Pursesandchecks.com. You can go in the comment section, you can go in the about section, and you can you can email me through that. You can send an email directly to me through the contact form on my website. In terms of parting words, I would say it's very important for us to not be emotional at this point in time, to not be both positively overexcited and negatively overexcited about our finances at this point in time. There's the golden rule of money is money has one rule. Here's two rules: you spend it, it's gone. You say you keep it around, it sticks. But if you spend it wisely, you get a lot more benefit out of it. If you store it under your mattress, it's not going to do anything much for you. So it's very important for us to have a very level head, and not only a level head, a level-headed approach to our finances at this point in time. It's important for us to be very emotionless in terms of how we're dealing with our money. um let's not get excited and take out more debt. Let's not get excited and cancel out plans or investments that could give us a lot of that could pay out better in the future. Let's not be people who want to cash in on things that we really don't understand. Do a lot of research before you invest in anything. um,
Mm.
and just make sure that you develop a healthy relationship with your money. The ultimate financial freedom is not having an abundance of money, but it's you getting to a point where where you make decisions for your money, and your money doesn't make decisions for you. That's my parting word.
Hectic. Yo, guys, I'm charging. My bank account numbers will be in the descriptions in all on all platforms, and I want I want my money. I brought y'all content, okay? Thank you so much for sharing. It was great having you, and we hope you can come back and share more pearls of wisdom.
Yes, and hopefully the next time we come back, we are talking about, other aspects of money, like financial infidelity, like financial abuse, all those other nice things about money that, we don't really want to talk about. And we're not just worrying or acting out of fear, because right now we're all in.
Yeah, and also just to exit survival mode and start flourishing. Oh, guys, I think we
Yeah,
deserve that.
yeah.
No, thank you very much. We're excited for the future.